Okay, please be seated. I'd like to call the 16th special meeting of City Council to order. I'm going to start off by reading a land acknowledgement. But we acknowledge that we are gathered today on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, Lenni-Pequot, and Attawandaron peoples. We honor and respect the history, languages, and cultures of the diverse Indigenous people who call this territory home. We acknowledge all of the treaties that are specific to this area: the Two-Row Wampum Belt Treaty of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy Silver Covenant Chain, the Beaver Hunting Grounds Treaty of the Haudenosaunee Nanfan Treaty of 1701, the McKee Treaty of 1790, the Lennon Township Treaty of 1796, the Huron Tract Treaty of 1827 with the Anishinaabe, and the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Wampum of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee. Three Indigenous nations that are neighbors to London are the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and the Munsee Delaware Nation, who all continue to live as sovereign nations with individual and unique languages, cultures, and customs. I'll also add that the City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternate formats and communication supports for meetings upon request. To make a request specific to this meeting, please contact councilagenda@london.ca or 519-661-2489, extension 2425. With that, I will look for disclosures of pecuniary interest from colleagues. I'll just indicate for colleagues, Councillor Hopkins is participating digitally online today. Everybody else who is present is in the chambers. Thanks, Councillor Hopkins. There are no recognitions for a special council meeting. There's no review of confidential matters to be considered in public. Council in closed session. I'm actually going to add a reason, so I'm going to turn it over to the Deputy Mayor to chair the piece for council in closed session. I'll have myself on the speaker's list.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will take the chair. With regard to council in closed session, we do have one item on the agenda: solicitor-client privileged advice, a matter pertaining to advice that is subject to the solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose related to a legislative interpretation and for advice about legal liability related to the criteria for outcomes of an RFP. I have no one else on the speaker's list, so I will go to you next, Your Worship.
Yes, the clerk is just going to prepare the language, but essentially I'm going to add a reason related to a communication added to the council meeting agenda related to both solicitor-client privilege as well as instructions to officers of the corporation that may be required based on that legal advice. So I'd be happy to move the addition of that as an additional reason to go into camera.
Okay, so you are moving both the original reason and the added reason. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Trussow, thank you. Any further discussion before we call the vote to move in camera? Clerk Westlake Power, do you have the language for that from? And colleagues, I will note that Councillor Van Meerbergen has just joined us online as well via Zoom. Welcome, Councillor. We are just dealing with Section 4 of the Council in closed session, and Mayor Morgan has added a second reason for our moving into camera. We're just waiting for the clerk to get that language ready for us. colleagues, you will see that now up on the screen. And the vote is open.
Councillor Hopkins, Councillor Van Meerbergen.
Councillor Hopkins votes
Say again, please. Thank you. Closing the vote, motion carries 14-0.
Thank you, colleagues. Then we will move into Committee Room 5 for our confidential session. So members of the public, members of the media, you can wait for us here. We will return from confidential session and resume public session once those items are dealt with.
Okay, please be seated. And I'll just note, it may have been a strategy of his, but the deputy mayor never actually ceded the chair back to me, so you're actually still chairing the meeting.
I was about to say, Your Worship, I might do a little role reversal in terms of how we normally do things and ask you to report out from confidential session at the end of the council meeting, but until then, I will return the chair to you.
Thank you. We will, yes, as you indicated, it is not the time to report out on the confidential session now. During council, that happens later. So we'll move to item 5, which is confirmation and signing of the minutes from previous meetings. We have none for this meeting because it's a special meeting. Communications and petitions. There are a good number of them there. So I would look for a motion to refer them to item 8.1, which is the relevant item on the agenda that the communication items are related to. Moved by Councillor Rahman, seconded by Councillor Cuddy. Any discussion on that? Okay, seeing none, we'll open that for voting.
Councillor Hopkins votes yes. Your worship, I'd like to keep my video off. I'm having internet problems, so just to save some energy, I will be here though.
Yes, no problem with that, Councillor.
There would have either been reserves or that component for that, although there would have been an end to it. Yeah. Whereas licensing, there's no end to.
Closing the vote, motion carries 14-0.
Okay, item 7 is motions of which notice is given. There are none. Item 8 is reports. We have the 23rd report, the special report of the SPPC meeting. I'll go to the Deputy Mayor to present that report. And I'll just note to the Deputy Mayor at the request of some members of council, there is a version of the motion that passed that is has the ability to divide out the different components of the different hubs so that they could be voted on separately. I have that, and the clerks have that before us, and so there's a number of ways to do that. So I just wanted to let you know that that's been, I believe, circulated to colleagues, but also can be put up at any time. But I'll let you present the report.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, for the 23rd special report of the Strategic Priorities and Policy Committee, I'm going to put items 1 and 2 on the floor first, so we can dispense with those. That is the disclosures of pecuniary interest and the September progress report, Health and Homelessness Whole of Community Response. And then we will deal with item 3, the Health and Homelessness Whole of Community System Response RFP process separately. So I'll put 1 and 2 on the floor now.
Okay, so 1 and 2 are on the floor, moved by the Deputy Mayor. Any discussion on items 1 and 2 from the SPPC committee report? Okay, seeing none, we'll open that for voting.
Councillor Hopkins votes yes.
Councillor Rahman.
Sorry, this is not the point where I would split the motion to vote separately.
No, what's before us is, so there's 3 items in the report: disclosures of interest, the regular health and homelessness update, and then the RFP process. So the RFP process is not being dealt with now. We're just dealing with items 1 and 2.
Closing the vote, motion carries 14-0.
Thank you, Your Worship. Now, with regard to item 3, the RFP process, as the clerk indicated, a number of councillors had indicated, even during the committee itself, that they wanted items separated to be voted on separately. The clerk did circulate alternate structured language. Everything that is in the alternate language that was circulated to council about an hour ago, it's all the same as the recommendations from the Strategic Priorities and Policy Committee, but it is broken up into different clauses so that individuals can call for separate votes on those. So I'm prepared to put the reform.
Briefly how it's structured so that it's very clear to everyone. So I think if you refresh your screen to current item, you'll be able to see, if you scroll down, item 2, which is the one that the Deputy Mayor is putting on the floor. It's now divided into essentially an A, B, and C components, with an it being noted, and then a number of other items that were related to the agenda. So the A, B, and C related to are related to specific RFP proponent proposals. Depending on which ones pass, the numbers that would be identified later in the it being noted clause would change if not all of them passed. And then component F would change to not reference all of the organizations if not all of them passed. And then I would change to say, instead of operate 3 hubs, the number of hubs that passed. And so the item is structured that we can have a debate on the whole thing, but at the time of voting, any member of council can say that they'd like A, B, and C dealt with separately, or A and B and C dealt with separately. We're happy to divide it in whatever way you want, but if you want to just, as the debate occurs, take a look at that motion and how it's structured and think about how you'd like it divided. But essentially, it would be an A, B, and a C can be dealt with separately, depending on the results of that A, B, and C. The it being noted and the directions that stem from them would be like slightly modified, depending on what passed and what didn't. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, so just one further point of clarification, because you were referencing A, B, and Cs. But if colleagues wish to vote separately on the individual location components, it is actually A1, A2, and A3, rather than A, B, and C. So it's AI, AII, and AIII in your agendas and in the vote that is listed for us in eScribe. So I just wanted to make sure that colleagues were very clear. Clause A is the separate locations. B and C move into directing civic administration. And as you have indicated, Your Worship, staff do have alternate numbers if not all 3 clauses in section A are approved.
I hate to correct you, Deputy Mayor, but I'll just go to the treasurer to identify, although you said they are separated, there is a piece of the procurement process that we have to retain, and that is full proposals, full RFP proposals from different providers have to be voted on in full. Like, they can't be taken apart or modified. If the treasurer could just comment on that, because I understand what you've said, but I just want to make sure that's not counter to the way that the RFP process has to be executed.
So I just, and perhaps I have the wrong vote open in eScribe, but what is on the screen is not what is in eScribe at the moment. Scroll, okay. And this is what happens when you're standing and presenting, is that you don't see the refreshed, so now it's refreshed.
So just for me to reiterate, when you vote for A, it won't be A, I, and then A, I, like the way that the hub's proposals came in will be fully contained. They're not pulled apart, but you could certainly vote for all of the one proposal, all of the other proposal, all of the third proposal. You just can't start modifying those proposals. Those are the bids. You either accept them or reject them in their entirety. Okay? All right. Okay. So with that, the Deputy Mayor has put the committee's recommendations on the floor with the new formatting. I will get my timer out for colleagues because last time I forgot to do that at the start. So for fairness, and I'll start a speakers list on this item. And this is council, so just so colleagues know you get to speak once. So Councillor Pelosi?
Sorry, just for clarification, is it A on the floor?
All
Like,
of it.
Are we, all of it
We're going to debate all of it.
at once versus
Yes,
separate?
and then we can vote on it separately.
Okay,
But we're not going to re-debate when we vote on it separately. People can make their comments on any piece they want, while the entire piece is on the floor. If there's an amendment to any component, then we can start to deal with the amendments separately. That would be a new motion, and thus.
yeah, I just felt it would have been easier to deal with like each site specific to keep the conversation tighter, but I'll save my comments to the end. Thank you for clarifying the process that everything's on the floor.
Okay, so to clarify, the whole thing is on the floor. The only thing that may be at this point divided out is just the voting increments, but it's one item. Everybody will debate that one item. If there's an amendment, then there would be a new as amended motion, but which could still be broken up and voted on separately. But just to keep this very clean, people may be wanting to talk about the whole proposal. They may be wanting to talk about one piece of it. They're welcome to do that through the course of the debate without issue. It'll be voted on separately at the end. We're not going to have debate on each of the components as we vote on them. We're going to have a full debate now. If colleagues would like to do that a different way, I'm open to hearing your suggestions on that, but for now, that's the way I'm going to proceed unless anybody asks for an alternative. Yes,
I'm
Counselor?
asking for an alternative.
What alternative are you asking?
I would prefer if we discussed A first, and then B, and then C, realizing as council, we could only speak once, up to 5 minutes. It's a lot to cover in 5 minutes if we're trying to cover A, B, and C. And they're very different proposals serving very different areas of our strat plan and communities. If procedurally it's not possible, I'll accept that.
Councillor, I'm just confirming with the clerks. Here's the challenge that I have. If someone wants to comment on the whole system, and then we divide these into each separate motion, yes, there would be separate motions and separate debates, but they would be very contained. I don't know at what point I would be able to allow someone to comment broadly on the entire process. So it's possible to consider doing it that way. It's just, I have to figure out how to do that to allow for the maximum discussion. Because what you're essentially asking for is, let's ask the presenting officer of the committee to put just one part of it on the floor. Just put A on the floor now. Just put B on the floor now. All separate motions, all brought forward. Yes, that's possible, but I'm just trying to find a way for, if at the end we can leave and it being noted for people who want to make general comments on the system as a whole. And the chair, if and you're going to be the one who has to divide it up because you're presenting the report.
I'm going to suggest another option for colleagues' consideration. I'm happy to do it in an A, B, C process if that's what colleagues wish. The other option is that we could suspend our rules and procedures to allow all colleagues to speak twice, and that would give everybody 2 times to speak rather than once, if that's an acceptable process for folks to follow. I'm in council's hands on that. Whatever colleagues wish, we can do A, B, and C separately. I'm happy to present it that way. If that satisfies folks, I'm happy to also support a suspension of the rules to allow 2 speaking slots instead of 1 if colleagues wish to go that way. But it's the will of council, not my decision.
I saw a lot of nods when you said, let's let people speak twice, but keep it all together. I'm just going to say, does anybody object to us kind of going that direction? That way there'll be more time to speak, but we'll deal with the whole thing all together. The only thing we'll be doing is having the vote separately at the end, but we're not going to redebate when we have those separate votes. Those are just for the decision-making portion. All of the debate will happen all at once. And I would look to maybe Councillor Pelosi, if you're supportive of that, just make a motion to allow people to speak twice. And then we'll vote on that, because we're actually saying notwithstanding the procedure bylaw. So I actually do want a motion on that. Councillor Pelosi.
I'm happy to make a motion to allow colleagues to speak twice, as it's such an important thing, recognizing we still need to stick to our 5 minutes for timing.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Will we get the language up? Councillor Stevenson's willing to second. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so I'll just clarify, it's not actually a suspension of the rules. Under section 9.7, we can pass a motion to allow us to do this, so you're basically being permissive, not breaking the rules. So that's moved and seconded. It's just not up on the screen yet. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, as soon as it's ready, I'll let you know, and then we'll open it for voting. Okay, we'll open that for voting.
Councillor Hopkins?
Votes yes.
Thank you. Closing the vote, motion carries 14-0.
Okay, so everybody's allowed to speak twice now on this matter. And now I will start a speaker's list. Councillor McAllister.
Thank you, and through the mayor. I'd like to start off by once again thanking everyone involved in the development of the Hubs plan. It was inspiring to see so many Londoners working together towards a common goal of helping our most vulnerable. I now want to lay out some of my reasons for supporting the Hubs. This is a plan which from the beginning has been developed by experts, frontline workers, those with lived experience, and continuous community input. It is an informed plan designed to help people experiencing homelessness throughout our city, and not limited to one geographical area. I want everyone to remember that these are people that we are talking about. I've had calls and emails from Londoners using terminology which dehumanizes and criminalizes not only the homeless population, but other parts of the city. I would ask that the public keep their comments civil and respectful. Furthermore, we need to stop portraying this as a downtown or East End problem. We are all Londoners, and when times are tough, we need to pull together and support one another. I don't care which direction, I don't care what part of the city you call home, north, south, east, west. Stop the division and stop using us versus them rhetoric. We all have a responsibility and a role to play in finding solutions to homelessness. That is why I'm confident in the Hubs approach. It was designed for people by people. It is a collaborative and takes holistic approach in providing a suite of desperately needed and highly specialized supportive services that will have a long-term and meaningful impact on people's lives. The Hubs do not exist in a bubble. They are part of a just gonna scroll down. They are part of a health and housing continuum that the mayor has mentioned time and time again. They are a much-needed entry into a supportive environment. In conjunction with the Hubs plan, we need to continue to invest in social housing models, such as those run by Inwell, and advocate to the province for greater mental health and rehabilitation resources. Those efforts will take time, and quite frankly, we can't afford to delay our response. Delays will be measured not in days, but in lives lost on our streets. We have the opportunity here and now to approve a plan which will save lives. We have also repeatedly heard that our emergency services are overloaded and need relief. These hubs will play a key role in freeing up emergency service resources. I want to truly thank the 3 social agencies that have put forward the first proposals. They have the necessary experience and expertise to ensure that these hubs are successful and that people get the help that they require. I am asking my council colleagues to vote in favor of the hubs and to offer hope to the homeless. Let's show the province and the country that Londoners have heart and can be leaders in finding solutions to the most challenging social issue of our time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McAllister. Other speakers? Councillor Trossau, go ahead.
Thank you very much, and I really do appreciate you allowing us to speak twice, because some of the things I want to say in this first go are a little bit more technical and procedural. And then I think maybe later I'll speak from the heart a little bit. But I want to start by saying that it's really important for the community to understand the difference between an RFP process under our procurement rules and how that differs from what we usually see in this chamber, and that is the city acting under its bylaw authority, general bylaw authority, which is very broad, or more particularly under our Planning Act deliberations, which are subject to the same rules. And I think one of the problems that we've seen here is that these have been conflated. And I think it's the responsibility of staff and the councilors and the media to try to sort that out. So there are a number of constraints here, being that this was an RFP process. So, for example, we can't say, well, you know what, it would make sense to move one of the facilities. We received the RFP that we received. We can't do that. We can't amend the technical text of the RFP, because we put this out as a tender, and we received sealed bids, and we opened the sealed bids. And then we, the very technical staff that deals with open bids made a determination. So we don't have the same ability to issue conditions here that we would have, say, for example, in a land use. So we're bound by this. We can't go outside of the terms of the RFP. And furthermore, there are certain matters that have come up continuously in some of the submissions that are absolutely beyond the scope, extrinsic, outside of the scope of the RFP process. For example, the status of a lease. You know, commercial tenants have certain rights under a lease, and when the lease expires, they don't have the same level of protection that residential tenants have. So that can't become an issue in our deliberation of an RFP. Now, so I just want to try to keep us within, for purposes of today's discussion, I want to stay within the 4 squares of the RFP provision. So I think right now, I'm just going to yield, and I will exercise my privilege to speak a second time in terms of some of the equity considerations and some of the things that I saw in some of the submissions that deeply disturbed me. But for now, let's understand we're dealing with a very specific RFP provision, and we are under exceptional legal constraints to stick to that. And I intend to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Other speakers? Go ahead, Councillor Pelosa.
Thank you, Your Worship, and having not spoken to this at committee, I've been spending my time listening to colleagues and residents inside and outside of my ward. I want to start, and being chosen by council to serve on the accountability table. For this being phase one, I want to thank all 4 applicants who applied and the 3 that came to us today as recommended service providers. And a thank you to the 200 individuals and 70 organizations who helped believe in this plan and a better London. I'll leave it to colleagues' decisions later if they want to separate these into the 3 different hubs for voting purposes, should it make a difference in your individual choices and selections. But speaking to each hub individually, for at LOSA Family Healing Services, they're already at this facility. It neighbors my ward. It's in Councillor Hillier's ward, but we share Wellington Road. I've had the opportunity to tour this site, and I have full support in what they're doing and how they're delivering services. We have an Indigenous-led response within our report on page 8 that we need to recognize the impacts of colonialism and generational impacts and how they do their work. Also realizing with members of our community, not everyone had the opportunity to grow up in a home where someone taught you the basic things you need to do to survive, of how to properly cook meals, nutrition, cleaning, self-care. And that is a lot of the wraparound services that I've seen on site, and empowering each other in these facilities to have those skills. So I'm asking, as we've just had National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, to consider at LOSA's proposal what they're doing. If you would also recognize that they have alternative funding for purchasing the 10 pallet shelters already secured, and they're waiting to go. In regards to the Youth Opportunities Limited, had an opportunity to speak with their board member, realizing their proposal outlines 15 beds, but realizing they already have their own transitional housing, and they're hoping to rotate these beds, all things considered upon individuals' needs who come through, but once per quarter. So that would actually give them the capacity of using those beds to service 60 individuals per year. As for the location on Fanshawe Park Road, which I realize many are with us this afternoon to hear about, I hear that there's concerns. I have 3 children too, and I do not live too far from one of the already service providers that are in my area. I've also experienced homelessness as a child, so I come with a different lens to this conversation. You probably would have been afraid of me back in the day, living without a home on the back of a pickup truck in a camper. I would also say that as we make these decisions today for the residents that are here, but so many years from now, our homes aren't going to be occupied by us. We would have sold, moved on, moved out of our neighborhoods. Life takes us many places. Our possessions that we treasure now, we won't treasure later. Our valuables, our vehicles, they're going to be in a scrapyard later. It's the question of what communities we want to form, realizing that we might not be using these shelters ourselves. I hope that none of us ever have to. Could be a loved one. We raise our kids the best we can and hope we give them the tools to make the best decisions, but we don't know what their future holds. It's their future, and everyone's capable of making a decision or having something happen in their lives that make them in a very bad situation. So that's the compassion that I lead with and the leadership I show in my lived experience. So I'm asking for support of these hubs. I know that you're worried. I will say it's a 2-year contract with opportunities for renewal. Doesn't mean we're going to renew, but I'm willing to see what we can do to make a difference, and realizing the shelter that's proposed near you is women and potentially women with children. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Other speakers? To give everybody a chance to speak twice, and no one wants to get on the list now. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll avail myself of the first opportunity. I want to say thank you to Councillor Trussow for using part of your time to outline how an RFP process is different from some of the regular processes here, and that you're absolutely right. We can't just move a location. These are the criteria. This is the bid that's come in. You know, I've heard a number of people say use vacant buildings elsewhere in the city. You know, those vacant buildings have other owners. They're not ours. They're not the city's. They belong to somebody, whether they're in use or not. So if that person is willing to allow them to be used for something, they participate in an RFP process, just like the locations that have been identified have in this process. But I want to speak to the locations and to the service providers in particular. And I want to start by saying this is not the only thing we are doing around health and homelessness. And I recognize Ms. Lazenby's in the gallery this afternoon, and the work that she does at the Unity Project is exemplary. And we heard Councillor Pelosa reference the pallet homes. There are pallet homes at the Unity Project right now that are providing a transitional space for people too. So this is not the only thing we are doing. There's the roadmap to 3,000. And we are approving units every week, it seems, at Planning Committee in different sites to build the housing inventory. We have other service providers out there. I will start with that LOSA because Councillor Pelosa opened that door, and Councillor Lehman and I actually had the opportunity to visit them as they were the leaders in a winter response at the site that they're at now. And this is almost a standing up of the winter response efforts that they made to become year-round supports. And they did a wonderful job there with the 30 participants that they helped through that winter response, quite a number of whom were able to reconnect to family communities, some of whom returned to the communities in which they grew up. But they'd been in London for a while, and they've returned to those First Nations communities. Others have been able to secure housing and secure employment as a result of that. So I have zero concerns about the Atlosa location. I know that they will continue to do the amazing job that they've already done. I'm going to speak to the YOU component just briefly, and it's going to lead into my comments on the CMHA piece. One of the other hats I wear in life is I'm a foster parent with Children's Aid. I have seen the difference that YOU makes in the lives of young people at risk in this community for years, and they do an exemplary job. So I've seen that difference. But as a foster parent, and this is where we get into this CMHA piece, when we talk about women who might be at the Fanshawe Park location with their children, when a child comes into foster care, there is a concerted effort made to maintain contact with the biological family. That may mean that once mom is in transitional housing, she may be able to have her children visit at that site instead of in the lobby of a McDonald's for an hour. She may even be able to convince the CAS worker that it's now in a position and in a location where the child will be safe if they stay for an overnight visit. This is how we reconnect children to their biological parents, and this CMHA location will provide an opportunity to do that. There are not 10-year-olds sleeping on the street. When that situation happens, CAS gets involved and those children are taken into foster care. And those children will not be moved immediately into the hub system. There is a whole different component of social work that goes into how we support youth at risk when they cannot be with their biological families. But we do have to find an opportunity to reconnect those youth with their biological parents. And this CMHA location is offering an opportunity to do just that. So I wanted to address those things because there's some misinformation that I've seen come through communications about children's involvement at this site. So I wanted to share from my own personal lived experience as a foster parent what that may actually look like when this is stood up and running if it's approved today. So I'm going to end my comments there for now, Your Worship. I may have some other comments to add later on.
Councillor Stevenson, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm going to pick up where the Deputy Mayor left off there. A couple of questions to staff. For the CMHA Women's Shelter, is there a large enough population of high acuity out of that group of 600 of women with children that we're directing that center to?
Mr. Dickens, go ahead.
Through you, Your Worship, the HUBS implementation table that designed the HUBS plan also identified the key priority populations that we should be focusing on in the first 3 to 5 HUBs. Females and female identifying individuals were identified as one of the key priority populations. The CMHA proposal is not strictly for women with children. It is for females and female identifying individuals. As the deputy mayor had already spoken to, there may be instances or scenarios where children may be in connection with their mother in this scenario.
Thank you. Follow up to that. I do agree and, agree with all of that. But when these hubs are being sold, really, in the sense that it's going to reduce emergency services, and we're dealing with the highest acuity people who are currently being turned away from our current shelter system, I'm wondering how we address the safety concerns of bringing children into a space like that if we are looking to address the needs of those who are such so involved with our police, emergency, and hospitals.
Go ahead.
Your Worship, the hub for CMHA women and female identifying is essentially across two sites. The first site is the respite site. This is where people are coming in, basic needs are met, and beginning to participate in stabilization. We are not anticipating seeing women who may have their children with them at that place. What we're referring to is the second site, which are where the transitional beds are. This is for women who have achieved a greater level of stabilization, are continuing to do work, and proceed to be able to be housed. What was identified is that there is space at that site should some of these women be connected with their children. There's an ability to accommodate it.
Thank you. And not to belabor this point, but it really is an important one. If we are addressing the 600 most highly acute complex needs that are currently banned or prevented from entering our shelter system, what is the path that's going to get them into those transitional beds?
Go ahead.
Your Worship, this is what's different about the whole of community system response, and that is by providing through the hubs the opportunity to come inside, engage with any number of different types of services and supports to begin to be able to stabilize. Once that happens and the level of acuity can drop for people, and then they can move to kind of the next step, if you will, which is having that transition or longer stay to be able to move to housing. The whole purpose of the hubs is to bring people in from outside so that they are engaged and that people can begin to work with them in whatever kinds of supports and services they need, so that we can ultimately have people move to housing. That is the goal, that is the sole goal of the hubs. So the process, from a respite perspective, that can take a bit. It may mean that people are coming in, going back out, coming back in. It's establishing the relationship, being able to engage, and providing the best combination of services and supports, whether that is income supports, basic needs, mental health, physical health supports, all of those to help people to stabilize and move to a conversation and pathway to stable housing.
Thank you. And so just to be clear then, so the pathway of stabilization are the respite beds?
Go ahead, Mr. Dickens.
Through you, Your Worship, in many cases, yes. And in some cases, as the lead organizations identify individuals that they'll be supporting in the transitional rooms, in those transitional housing units essentially, they may be taking folks of high acuity right into those spaces. I think it's in this type of work, be it through mental health, addictions, some of the outreach work, not everything is linear. And so to say that individuals that are barely surviving on the streets today, which may pose a risk to our businesses, to the public, to themselves, to say that when they're provided the opportunity to have a space of their own, a space where there's 24/7 care, that they would still be a risk or that there would be some safety concern to the general public is not necessarily a connection that's easy or fair to make. While they're living desperately now, bringing folks indoors, be it through the respite beds or be it directly into transitional spaces, allows people to receive wraparound care that they're currently not receiving. So the impact of that care it would see a decrease in that vulnerability, in that precarious living, and give people the opportunity to stabilize.
Okay, thank you. The other question is about the YOU, which, you know, I've never heard anyone say a bad thing about that organization and what they do. We're blessed to have them in the city. There was talk that the 15 beds, they were going to be able to flow 60 through each year. And again, if we're talking about addressing the 600, the highest acuity, the ones that are going to save us all this money in emergency services, what percentage of our highest acuity are youth? Because that's 10% in 1 year. I'm just wondering how many of those are youth?
Go ahead, Mr. Dickens.
Thank you, Your Worship, and my apologies for not having that specific stat handy today, but it would far outpace 60 individuals, 60 youth. It's probably closer to 10% of our homeless identified individuals.
Okay, thank you for that. I wanted to address some of the things that I hear. So there's a notion that it's misinformation to have safety concerns, and I think that I have to disagree with that. We've got hub locations where we've been asked to fund close to $800,000 a year just for security outside those locations, not to help anybody, not to provide services or housing, but to basically shoo people off the lawn to avoid the problems with the violence and the issues that are being had there. So I think to have those kind of things really happening, such that we've got security being a really high expense for a lot of our core area businesses, our developers, our apartment buildings, and the social service agencies, you know, to discount people's safety concerns, I think is a disservice to the people. And I think that they need to be told why this is going to be different than around our current social service agencies. Why, if there's a way to make it safe around the neighborhoods around where our social service agencies are, why that isn't being addressed in Old East Village. You know, one of the things I learned about fentanyl is that people need to inject several times an hour instead of the old drugs, which were several times a day, which may be why we're seeing more open drug use, more needles. One of the things, too, is the language in this plan. So we talk about harm reduction, which is, you know, mitigating potential harm in the structures which create harm for people who use drugs, accepting where they are at, avoiding judgment, and working to challenge existing systems and policies that create more harm, like the criminalization of drug use. It talks about low barrier, which is meeting people where they are at, and that if challenges arise, the conversation begins with how the agency, the space, and the staff will adjust. It's about promoting agency for those who have the most high and complex needs and are currently being turned away from our shelters. I don't think we can afford to be wrong with this investment of $21 million. And I believe that a good deal today is a good deal tomorrow.
You've got about 30 seconds left in your first 5 minutes.
That this pressure to close the deal, that we have to do something, there's nobody arguing that the status quo is good. But to say that we have to do this because there's no other path is to just limit possibility and what is possible when people come together with ideas. With all due respect to the mayor, he was budget chair for 6 years and 2 years as deputy mayor. And to say that now we have to act so urgently that there's no time to talk with the public, to get the sales pitch, to understand who's coming through these centers, what is the path to stabilization, where are the housing for them to go to, with no forecast or business plan, nothing to say, we have 2,000 now, this is what we predict in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years.
Your first 5 minutes is up, Councillor.
So I will take my other 5.
You want to go now? Okay, all right, go ahead.
Yeah. When I look at the wording here for the hubs. You know, it says here, our vision for the hubs is not just about providing shelter, it's about creating a welcoming environment that nurtures hope and empowers individuals as leaders on their path to stability and housing. It offers not only essentials like food, clothing, and healthcare, but also opportunities for personal autonomy, growth, and community connections. Through this transformative plan, we are redefining the way we approach homelessness, and together we can build a more compassionate and inclusive London. So this is the path for the hub, versus something like what is happening in California with the Way Out and Salvation Army, where it's a recovery-focused homeless initiative designed to restore lives and inspire change through a recovery system of care. Services include treatment on demand, residential treatment, therapeutic communities, recovery-focused transitional housing, life skills, career development, independent living, and aftercare for life, principles of recovery, accountability, and service, adaptive coping strategies. In this hub plan, there's talk about a willingness to adapt, change, pause, and course correct. That has not been our experience with the current social service agencies. We're having a lot of problems around 602 Queens, such that we're being asked to fund $800,000, almost that, in security. We've got businesses downtown barely surviving, people not wanting to come downtown for safety reasons. And so I'm asking or putting forward that why don't we demonstrate that willingness to pause and course correct right now? So much has been accomplished through this whole community to this point. But what has worked? There's a lot that's worked. There's a lot that hasn't worked. And we can see it in the public reaction and their concern. And what could we do next? This is a big next step for Londoners. And I think that we deserve to have like a presentation like we had on BRT that tells us what to expect. What's London going to look like in 1, 2, 5 years? Why is it worth spending this $21 million? And, you know, what we got right now is a goal of fewer deaths, fewer encampments, and more people housed. If I have a leaky roof and somebody comes to me with a sales pitch to have me invest in whatever their product is, and they say you're going to have fewer leaks, smaller leaks, and, you know, they'll be less often. Well, like, is that enough? Like, we're talking about lives here. We're talking about neighborhoods. We have a commitment to women, the safety of women and girls. We have a commitment to public safety. We're in a crisis here. And we will be held accountable, not just at the next election, but next year and the year after, for the state of our downtown, our parks, and for the number of unhoused. We're being asked to spend this $21 million, and will it make a difference? Is this the best use of funds? How can we in good conscience vote yes on $21 million without that sales pitch, without the business plan, without the projections, and for the investment, where this investment will take us? I can say no right now, or I could agree to a referral back just for another month to look at what has worked in this whole of community, what hasn't, and what is the next best step. Not the only step, but the best step for London and for Londoners. And I just feel that 73 beds, 44 before the end of the year, is not enough of a pressure sale to say we will not notice the difference. I'd like to see all—
You got about a minute left.
Thank you. I would like to see all efforts focused on the winter response that we are in desperate need of. We have 2,000 people on our streets right now. It's a crisis situation. I think that we can pause this and we can celebrate all the work that's been done so far, all of the wins, all of the learnings, but take a breath. Deal with the winter response and come back with something truly amazing, the very best next step for all Londoners in 2024.
Okay, I'm going to have you pause, Councillor. So for those who are here in the gallery, as our normal course of business is we don't clap, we don't cheer, we don't say other things. There are many people with diverse opinions. You'll hear things you like, you'll hear things you don't like. To make sure that people feel comfortable both in the audience, no matter what your points are, we usually just watch the council meeting. People have signs, that's fine. People can nod their heads, but we don't do outbursts of either appreciation or otherwise, so that everybody here can watch and enjoy without feeling any sort of pressure one way or the other. Councillor, you have about 22 seconds left. I appreciate you letting me pause there.
Is it too late to put forward a referral motion?
Yeah, you can do that now.
I'd like to do that.
Okay.
If I have a seconder.
Motion to, so you want to refer the whole thing? Do you want to give some detail as to when or where?
I'm open to that, but I think that it would be good to have a projection. We talk about the bridge, building the bridge as we walk across it. I want to see that bridge plan. I want to see where it goes. Where does London look like next summer and the summer after? How many people are going to
Okay.
remain unhoused?
I
So,
understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
you want to make a referral. I'm just getting some specific
get it.
details about the referral. So to SPPC, to a future council, general timeframe, like we can tell you when the dates are, but it's always good to tie a referral.
so in this particular case, how much time do we have with the RFP to keep these open if it was a matter of getting the sales pitch?
So I need to go to Ms. Marbone. Is there any restriction on a delay given any sort of commitments related to the RFP process?
Thank you through the chair. So as per the RFP, there was a 120-day acceptance period. So that would be from the submission of the bids. So I'd have to do the math to confirm exactly what that date is, but you'd have up to 120 days.
Okay, it sounds to me like we need to do that math because it sounds to me like the intent of the council isn't to defer past the end of the RFP process and invalidate the RFP. Go ahead, sorry.
Thank you. So that would be 120 days through your worship from the date of the close, which is September 5th. So that would put you approximately the first week in January. However, the close also refers to the contract award and the actual contracts being executed. So you'd need to back up enough time to allow for the contracts and the work subsequent to council's approval for purchasing and the city clerk and to procurement to finalize the contracts. So I would say you'd want to make sure you did that before the beginning of December to allow the time to complete the contract completion.
So before the beginning of December is the kind of the back end on the time frame.
Sounds good.
Okay, and you want to refer to SPPC?
Sorry, rocks.
Yes, please.
Sorry, I don't know who has their microphone on, but they need to turn it off. Sorry, to SPPC, and we'll find the clerk will get the appropriate SPPC meeting around that time frame. So I'll look for a seconder for the referral motion. I'll use Councillor Cuddy. You were first. Give me 1 sec till we get it up. So SPPC on Tuesday, the 21st, would report into council the following week, which meets the time frame that the deputy city manager mentioned. Okay, so that'll be what we put up in a second. It's moved in second, and I'll wait till it's up, and then I'll start a speakers list on the referral. And you'd like to speak to the referral? You could, yes, it's still council, so new motion, so.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna go through, repeat what I've said, but I do want to explain why and the value that I see in referring and taking another month on something that I know is highly anticipated and a lot of people, have a lot of interest in moving forward. And it really is about due diligence in this place of leadership and corporate governance that we have. We have a duty to not emotionally say yes to $21 million because there's such a great need out there and because we need to do something and because we all desperately care so much. We have a corporate governance role to play here where we need to just see why this versus something else. What is, we should just be able to be explained, this is better than that and why. These are the costs. We could have done this, but this is why this was brought forward to us. What are the outcomes going to be? Give us some projections that we can measure it against. Share with us what the accountability is going to be. Share with us the forecasts of what are you predicting and tell us what we can expect and what Londoners can expect in 1, 2, and 5 years. I'd also really love to see a narrative, a video done that can walk us through these hubs and what kind of people. Tell us about Mary and who is she and what are her needs and what is she going to experience at the respite bed, and then when is she going to transition to, obviously no one's going to hold you to it, but walk us through it. What does it look like? And where does she go at the end? Same with YOU, so that we can really get behind it, so that we can understand why there doesn't need to be safety concerns around the hubs compared to some of our other areas. And so that at the end of the day, we can say we did our due diligence, we asked the questions, we saw the numbers, and we made an educated choice on behalf of Londoners. And then we can celebrate the fact that we've tried something new based on an informed decision. And we will all do everything that we can to ensure the success of this over the next few years, because so much is counting on it. So much. So many people. It's not just our unhoused, it's our housed, it's everyone. Everyone is feeling this, and right now everybody is losing. And so I too want consensus going forward, right? Like let's move forward. Let's not rush it. Let's not minimize people's concerns. The truth can withhold scrutiny. Let's look at it, let's talk about it, and then let's all agree to move forward in 2024. And that's my reason for requesting a referral of a short period of time to just get what is needed to make that informed choice.
Okay, we're on the referral, so I'll start a new speakers list on the referral. Councillor Trosau, go ahead. And I'll just let everybody know, I'm not applying the speak twice rule to the referral. Like everybody gets one on the referral. I took the motion of council to speak twice on the item that was before us, which I still had the list for. On the referral, it's a one-time shot. Go ahead, Councillor Trosau.
Starting with the statistic that since the beginning of 2020, more than 200 unhoused Londoners have died, frames the exigency to move forward with this. Nothing's going to change. And I think to suggest that we have not done due diligence, that all the people in the community who have come together on these tables have not been diligent, and that the staff has not put together a very, very detailed hubs implementation program, which, by the way, I should say, is a decided matter of council that we adopted that. I think it's really a slap in the face. And quite frankly, nothing's going to change. From what I can see, we're not going to reach a consensus on this. And I just think to say, if we just delay this, our problems are going to go away. What's going to happen in the next month that we haven't been working on over the entire last year in terms of the various different tables? So let's please not do this. I think that if we delay this, it shows the sign of, well, maybe we really didn't do a good job developing the standard of care in the hubs, which was very well defined, and which this council, by the way, approved. So I think we would be sending out, a very bad signal. And I said this at the SPPC. I think we would be sending out a very bad signal to our potential partners here, particularly those who might want to come in and join us in the next round of RFPs. This isn't going to change anything, and I just think delay, for the purpose of delay, is cruel. So please, let's vote down this referral. Thank you.
Other speakers to the referral? Go ahead, Councillor Frank.
Thank you, yes. Unsurprisingly, I'll not be supporting this referral. I don't need more time to deliberate this, as I think we have been deliberating on it for months already. Hubs are a new concept, and so we can't continue to compare it to existing services. If we do want to try to compare it, and I wouldn't, we could compare it closer to hospital beds than shelter beds, which are much more expensive. Asking for a delay to debate more options which haven't been brought forward, which haven't been discussed in the 6 to 9 months that we've been debating this topic. To Councillor Chassau's point, I think that we are not going to come up with anything new in a month. Also, to compare this crisis to gravel roads or leaky roofs is completely unfair to the complexity of the issue. It's also deflating to the people, I think, who've been working on an innovative strategy to present to us. Roads and roofs are very easy to fix. Homelessness is not. The Hubs plan clearly outlines a commitment to the community engagement in neighborhoods that are going to be impacted, and also purpose-built design spaces to try and mitigate any of the worst impacts. As we know, if we move forward with this, the area on Fanshawe will be rezoned, and then therefore we'll have a public participation meeting, which is where people can come and talk about how we can mitigate any of the worst impacts through design. And we do this all the time at planning. And the perpetual stigmatization of the population that is being served at these various hubs, I think, has been incredibly disgusting. And I'd encourage people to stop in that some of the language that they're using. I'd also like to highlight this is an evidence-based approach. Harm reduction and low barrier access is based in science. Research has been done. It is a recommendation for how to move forward in a humanitarian way, and most people respond well to it. I think, again, waiting another month is delaying, so the cost of doing nothing essentially in the next month, and then potentially we'll see what happens after that, would be catastrophic. If we think things are bad now, imagine the cost as it increases. As experts say, our homelessness crisis could quickly double or triple. So I think as we see more pressure on emergency services, the police have come in asking for more budget in the past year. Ambulance services have come in asking for more money. We know the cost of emergency services increases, and our healthcare, the pressure on healthcare continues to be enormous. So I truly wonder, why are people afraid of moving forward? Let's try something new. We've already talked many times about how this is a 2-year process. We can tweak it if it's not working. We can improve it. We can decide what to do next. None of the hubs preclude us from increasing funding to shelter beds. I think shelter beds are another tool in our toolbox, but as we know, it does not address high acuity folks. Most folks who have high acuity are barred from going to shelters. So this plan is dealing with a specific population that is not being dealt with and not having services met in all the other tools that we have in our toolbox. And as the Deputy Mayor said earlier, we also are building housing, we have shelter beds. This is just one tool. It's not the silver bullet. It's not going to be perfection, but it is trying to deal with a population that does not have the services it needs to succeed. So for that fact, I'm not going to be supporting the deferral. I think we have the information. We have been debating it. We've been hearing from people. We've had at least 10 town halls, which is more than any town hall I've had on any of the other topics that have come to council. We've received hundreds, if not thousands, of emails and phone calls about this. I feel very well informed by what the community is saying and what they are interested in. So I think that this is a good, sound, expert-informed plan, and to keep asking if is there a better plan out there, I think flies in the face of all the individuals who have helped develop this work. So like I said, nothing will be perfect, but it is incredibly comprehensive and well thought out, and I think that we need to move forward with it. I'm not trying to move forward with it for some false sense of urgency. I think this is the right plan. I don't need more time to think this is the right plan. So happy to support it, and again, if anything, we can always tweak it year to year and improve it. Thanks.
Councillor Ferreira.
Thank you, Your Worship. So obviously, I will not be supporting the referral as well. I do see what the two colleagues before me just said, and I appreciate that because that's pretty much how I feel, as well. You know, I can tell the stress in this room is quite high when you don't feel how cold it is, and this is because we're at such a pivotal moment. We have been climbing this hill for the last 10 months. We've been climbing this hill with 200 individuals, more than 200 individuals, 70 organizations helping us along. Council's been there, staff has been there, and we're almost there. We are literally almost at the peak of this hill. And throughout the entire time, we've been providing hope, not just hope for people who we're looking to serve, who have been historically unserved, but hope for everybody in the city. When we were campaigning, we all heard our biggest issues at the door, and we had meetings with staff speaking to those issues, and it was across the board, we all agreed that we had to do something about it. And I just would like to urge you to realize that if we delay this, how many more people will die? What will Mary make it to this referral? Will Mary make it to when we get to the next level? I think pushing this back is not the way to go. This is a pivotal moment for our council. It's a pivotal moment for London. Everyone's watching, and we need to continue on with the lead that we've been bringing here, because we're almost there. And I think it would be an absolute shame if we stop now. We're at the bottom of the hour here. We've had a long time where the community was able to engage. We've had many points of contact for individuals to give their feedback. And we find ourselves here today with almost everything ready to go. And we should support this plan. We need to support this plan. Everyone's asking for it. The longer we delay, the worse it's going to get. So we need to realize that this moment is going to define us. Are we going to take that moment? Or are we just going to let it pass us by? I'm clearly not going to be supporting the referral. I hope that we all vote this plan today. So that's where I'll keep it for now.
Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I too will not be supporting the referral, and I'm going to take just a brief moment to explain why. You know, I've heard some comments about, you know, today I've heard some comments about what somebody's doing in California. I've heard comments throughout this process, though, through communications about what other jurisdictions are doing in other countries in the world. We have to act within the Canadian reality, first of all. We're a municipality whose powers flow from the provincial government in the nation of Canada under our Constitution. We don't get to change drug laws in this country. That's the federal government's job. We don't get to decide on quite a number of things at the municipality. And in fact, we even, in terms of this plan, are relying on funding from the provincial government and the federal government in some aspects with regard to capital housing needs. We're not funding this through property taxes because it's not something that we can sustain through property taxes. So when we talk about making an informed decision, we've had more than 200 participants from more than 70 organizations who deliver these services, who have far more information and experience than I have as councillor, who have brought this plan forward. And I'm trusting them in terms of being ready to make a decision today to deliver on that. And if they don't, then I will be looking for other options to do. But this is the best option we have before us. Yes, I would love to see a rehabilitation addiction treatment hospital in this city. But that is the provincial government's job through healthcare. And I will say that when Minister Tibolo was here for AMO in August, very productive preliminary discussions were had about the province establishing a site in London for rehabilitation and addiction treatment. And I know the mayor is continuing that advocacy, and in fact, I think we are expecting Minister Tibolo to return to our community this fall at some point to continue those discussions and look at some options that are available to us. I also, while I'm not going to repeat everything that Councillor Frank said, I do want to agree with her on one thing when she talks about repairing a leaky roof versus addressing homelessness. And I heard BRT mentioned, and so I want to compare it to BRT for a moment. With the bus rapid transit plan, do nothing was absolutely a viable option. Do nothing on homelessness is not a viable option. So I cannot equate the two as being analogs where we can just, and the BRT debate only got more divisive as things went on. Healthy debate is fine, but divisiveness and deliberate maligning of people is not. And so for me, I can't compare this to BRT. It's not the same. It's not an infrastructure project in the same regard because it's people and people's lives that we're talking about in terms of how we are trying to address their needs. But it's also about do nothing also means that those businesses that are struggling are going to continue to struggle. And I think we also owe it to them on that side. And we've had this discussion at the Argyle BIA table, which I'm a member of. We owe it to them to start moving forward and trying something different too. As I said, I'm trusting the informed opinion of the experts who've helped shape this plan. And I'm trusting their opinion that they've given me the best information that we have in front of us today to make a decision. If it does not work, then there will have to be changes. There will have to be something else. But in the absence of something else right now, I'm not going to support a referral on this to go back to the drawing board. I have the information I need from the experts in the field to make a decision today and to see, based on the outcomes of this plan over the next year, whether or not it's worth pursuing further or whether it's perhaps even something that needs to be ended and something new come up with. But we'll do that when we from the outcomes. Right now, there is no other system like this.
Councillor, you've already spoke to the referral.
So now it's been misrepresented, my referral.
Okay, so there's two options to that. One, at the end of a motion, you can reply to clarify any sort of misrepresented statement that happened through the debate. It has to be kind of restricted to that and not new debates. So if you feel that's happened, I can come to you at the end and you can clarify any comments that you'd like to make. You were fit. Okay, good. Okay, I have myself next on the speakers list, so I'm going to turn the chair over to Councillor Lehman.
I'll go to the mayor.
So I'm not going to support the referral, and I'm going to outline why by just recapping how we got here and why I think delay isn't the right decision. So about this time last year, the first of the summits was forming. The first time that members of this community who've been serving vulnerable populations said, we may not agree on everything. We may have been doing things in our own way, but there's a crisis here and we need to find a way to come together and design a different system. And so they came together. And there was a lot of people who had to be really humble through that process. I know the city manager talked about the role that the city had played. We'd had a hunger strike. We'd had a lot of pressure on us. Everybody came together in a way that put their differences aside and said, let's try to figure something out here. And then that process proceeds through a series of summits. And then a wealthy benefactor comes along and says, I think we need to shake this up and do something so transformative that I'm willing to put $30 million, 25 plus 5 matching, into this process to help be a catalyst. And so that happens, and I get to announce that at the State of the City. The process continues. Council gets a framework for health and homelessness from that group to endorse, and they endorse it. We proceed along. Implementation tables are formed. Work is done, months and months of work. We endorse a HUBS implementation plan. We proceed with public dialogue. We establish frameworks and parameters. We lead ourselves into an RFP process. We let that RFP process. And then we have organizations in the city who say, I've seen all the work that's been done, and I'm going to put my organization in the game. And there's 4 who bid and 3 who are being recommended. There's others I know are interested, but maybe didn't meet the first set of RFP timelines. And I'll just pick one, at LOSA, for example. Bidder in the RFP process. Organization that says they can open a hub, a full hub, under budget this year. And so, we can wait until November 28th for council to make a decision on this. Or on December 1st, we can have at LOSA bringing people from outdoors indoors. Serving a population that is 30% of our homeless population and a significant portion of the high acuity individuals in the city. And if you want stories or testimonials, I can tell you after those people come indoors and you give them some time to work through the system, They can come here and tell us how it's transformed their lives. That can be your testimonial. That can be the sales pitch to move forward with multiple iterations of the plan. But we help the most vulnerable in our community. We are changing their lives. And I know numbers have been given about the number of people who've died on our street, and I'm not going to go into that piece. What I want to say is there has been so much coming together in our community that has been done through this process. There are organizations who are willing to commit not just their assets in the hub, but bringing the full force of their organization, like YOU, saying we're going to leverage our whole system to support this endeavor. And we can start that process today. And like Councillor Frank said, we can make adjustments as we move forward. Integrated into the hub's plan is the lead's responsibility for that public engagement, for that dialogue, for the monitoring that the hospitals and the university systems can do for us so that we can adjust, we can change, we can improve. The things that are working can be enhanced, the things that aren't can be adjusted. But none of that happens till we start. And so the decision today is about, do we open spaces this year or not? That's what the referral is about. Lots of the things that we can do to adjust and support other agencies, we still have those options on our table. We can still change things if we need to. But today, the motion before us, if we don't defer it, allows us to actually move this into implementation, to shift from all of the work and all of the theory and all of the dialogue and all of the research into implementation, into actual action. You know, governments are really, really good about talking about things for a really long time. Flipping things into action, you know, that's kind of the point where you really test whether you're going to move forward or not. So I will not support the referral today. I think that there are many discussions that we can continue to have about this, but I'd like to see people coming indoors, as many as we possibly can, through the proposals that we have on the table before the end of this year, and then more in the spring with what we have before us. So I won't be supporting the referral, and I'll look forward to the continued debate if it's defeated on the main motion.
Thank you, and I'll return the chair to the mayor with Councillor Primble on the speaker's list.
Councillor Primble, go ahead.
Thank you, and I'm just going to make my comments to the referral, and if the referral is defeated, then I have other comments to the main motion. The reason why I would support the referral is because on July 24th, we were introduced to certain guidelines in terms of number of beds per hub, in terms of the capital expenditure, in terms of the operating, in terms of the zoning, et cetera, et cetera. So that was introduced to us in July, and now, not even 2 weeks ago, we were given details that are actually, some of them more closer, some of them actually quite further away what we were introduced to. And my concern is this, that I think that all the comments in terms of, you know, supporting the hubs, that I cannot disagree with any one of you, that it would help certain number of populations, certain specific population. My issue is this, currently if you go to the encampments or talk to people on the street, what's happening there, we have the mental health and we have the addiction that's climbing up at this pace. Right now we have homelessness population that's there, and I'm frequently at the encampments and on the street talking to the homeless. They can't afford it anymore. The problem is that this one is going much faster up, and guess what? They're starting to move to this area. And that's my issue, that I heard here that we have the best option in front of us. I'm sorry, I see the only option. And that's my disappointment in terms of this. I do think the approach and our staff did a great job bringing people together. I think there was a great progress done. I think we have a great plan. Unfortunately, we don't have the real estate to support it. The 4 organizations that came forward, or certainly the 3 ahead of us, in front of us, are amazing, great. But the problem is, for me, in terms of this investment, I'm looking on return on investment. And I'm not looking for money. I'm looking at saving people's lives. And this is an issue. We have people currently homeless that are there recently, and it's much easier, much faster, much cheaper to save them. And we are not. Our priority is right now very marginal population, and I'm not saying I'm going to talk to the main motion as well if this is defeated, but just to the referral, why I would support it is because it's not according to the guidelines that were introduced, and I would love to look for other options that are direct and for our community. It doesn't matter if it's any part of London, better for us. But that's the only reason why I would support the referral, and if the referral is defeated, I will talk to the main motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Rahman next.
Thank you, and through you. I have some questions related to the referral. The first question I have is, are staff confident that they can meet are staff confident that they might be able to answer this question, I guess, around the ATLOSA and the YOU proposal, the beds associated for December 2023, that those can be accomplished with a referral to the state?
So can the beds for 2023, I think you heard the question. Go ahead.
Through you, your worship, no, we would not be confident that we could do that, given what was mentioned earlier by Ms. Barbone in terms of the time it would take to make sure we negotiate and settle on all applicable contracts.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. So I have a lot of comments and was reserving my speaking time more to the main motion. On the referral, I'm wondering if the councillor that made the motion would consider a shorter timeline in order so that we could meet the requirements if needed for the December 2023 beds.
So now that the referral's on the floor, it's owned by council, but you can amend the date yourself. If you wanted to, you don't have to agree with every component of the referral. It is well within the procedure bylaw for you to make an amendment to a different date as part of the referral. So I would say that would be the course of action, given it's already a motion that is on the floor and being debated.
Thank you, and through you. So just to follow up with that, is there a date that staff would feel confident that if we referred to, we'd still be able to meet our commitments?
I'll go to Mr. Dickens. Go ahead.
Thank you, your worship. And outside of today being the date, no. So when we look at referring this a month, referring it 6 weeks, whatever that might be, that's a delay in these organizations getting a signal from council that they can proceed with starting their construction, starting their hiring, starting their training, making sure they have all of their community engagement started. The proponents have identified a community engagement schedule, which allows them to do that work with the neighborhood as well. So any delay will be a delay in all of those items.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Procedural question. Can I split a referral?
Could you just articulate how you want to split it so I can?
Thank you.
confer
I'd be
with clerks?
looking to split out C in the referral to refer C, but not refer the rest, and I can explain my reasons.
So, Councillor, given the Councillor's intent is to refer the whole thing, you wouldn't be able. You wouldn't be able to refer that piece. But what you could do is, if the referral's defeated, and you only wanted to refer one part, I would see that as still in order, because it would be fundamentally different to referring the whole thing. So I'm telling you now, I would reserve your right, if a referral was defeated, to refer a portion of the original on the floor motion, as long as you're not going to try to refer all of it again, which would be the exact same as we just debated. You would have the ability to do that. But the pathway to that would be defeating this referral and then putting your own on at the appropriate time.
Thank you. I appreciate the ability to ask questions and to have those questions answered. I do have additional questions, but I would say they're probably outside of the referral. So I will wait to ask those questions in my one of two rounds of speaking. At this time, I'm prepared to support some of the RFPs, and therefore will not be supporting this referral, as it will close the option of all the referrals, or of all the proposals, sorry, that are in front of us. And so I appreciate the opportunity to hear more from the community on this matter. I appreciate the opportunity to address some additional questions. However, I do have to weigh how much that would delay the other possible, or delay the RFPs, and whether or not any of the organizations will be able to meet their commitments in that timeline. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Other speakers, I know you can come back and do the reply at the end, but I'll just make sure there's no other speakers, because that really should be the last item. Just make sure no one's online. Anybody else to speak to the referral? Okay, Councillor, you can reply, given you passed the motion, but it really should be about clarifying any sort of misstatements or misunderstandings about the referral, which you indicated there was, so I'll let you speak to that. It's not an opportunity to bring in new information or redebate, but you can clarify any sort of miscommunication.
Clarification is, I've heard a couple of times it mentioned that, this referral was to, reinforce the status quo or bring forward new motions, and it's not. It's to bring forward a business case with quantifiable goals and a sales pitch such that $1 billion a year corporation would say yes to a $21 million investment. It's not about the status quo or about new options.
Thank you for that clarification. With that, that's the councillor's reply to some comments you heard through the debate. There's no other speakers, so we're voting on just the referral. It's moved and seconded, and I'll open the referral for voting.
Councillor Hawkins votes no.
Closing the vote, motion fails 4-10.
Okay, so the referral is defeated. We're back to the main speakers list for the motion, which is at this time unchanged. I have the list of colleagues who've already spoken, and I'm looking for the next person on the speakers list for the main item now. Councillor Rahman, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you. I'm looking for an opportunity to ask some follow-up questions to questions that I posted at SPPC. The first of which deals with the 705 Fanshawe Park Road West location, specifically whether or not we heard from CMHA as to whether or not they did an evaluation of those that were living at the location.
Mr. Dickens, go ahead.
Through you, Your Worship, yes, we did receive some correspondence from CMHA regarding the property in question from the owner of the property. It is indicated to us that there are currently 6 people in a long-term stay in the Lighthouse Inn. One of those individuals is affiliated with the property owner. Some sort of long-standing relationship, very familiar with each other. 4 people are in short-term stays, 2 to 3 months. The property owner was withholding any formal notice until the Hubs plan discussion was before council and if there was approval in place. But the property owner has indicated they'll be offering those in those spaces, so those combined 10 individuals. The property owner will be offering them a room at his other hotel. And if those occupants decline that offer, they would still be going to assist those individuals to find alternative accommodations. So one of those other properties are in the possession of the property owner.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm learning that as new information from staff today. Thank you for that. I'd like to just follow up. And do you have any information of how long? You said that there were 10 individuals that were living there. Do you have any information as to how long and length of stay in terms of how long people are staying there?
Mr. Dickens?
Through you, Your Worship, no, I was We did not investigate how long each tenant of this space was in that location. Typically, though, those that are occupying that Lighthouse Inn tend to be folks that have closed on the sale of their home, and they're staying there temporarily before they move into other locations. So the property owners indicated that they have alternative locations for all those that would be displaced.
Go ahead.
Thank you, and through you. So all the information that is being presented is from the property owner, not from CMHA, and it's from the property owner's account of who stayed at their location and their rationale behind, and the reasons that they've been told by those individuals as to why they were there.
Through you, your worship, the information has been provided through CMHA as they were the lead applicant on this proposal.
Thank you. And just to clarify and follow up, so CMHA interviewed those individuals, or was the information from the property owner directly?
Mr. Dickens.
Through you, your worship, I don't know the answer to that. We asked CMHA for the information. It was provided by CMHA. With the information, how they obtained it from the property owner, I'm not sure if it was through dialogue or surveys or interviews.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Just to go back, for this location at Fanshawe Park Road, and I'm really focusing my conversation just in terms of limiting my time around this location, I plan to support the 2 additional RFPs at the other locations and want to see their success. Speaking to the 705 Fanshawe Park Road location, I just wanted to find out what kind of consultation was done with the businesses around, and then what notice was provided to the community.
Go ahead, Mr. Dickens.
Through you, your worship, the neighborhood and community engagement is part of the onboarding of the hubs. And so that work would happen by the lead agencies in their respective areas of where the hubs will be located.
Thank you. And through you, just to help the public to understand more about how the businesses in the area were engaged in this process, can we speak any more about that part of the discussion that took place with the business communities? I know that there was engagement sessions as we were doing the implementation work with BIAs, for instance. And I know that the Old East Village BIA and the Downtown BIA both had separate engagement sessions in which their membership were invited out. Just wondering, for businesses in this area, what kind of engagement was undertaken?
Go ahead.
Through you, your worship, we've held 2 consultation sessions, engagement sessions, one in June and one in late August and September. 5 were general community sessions held throughout the city, including in the Northwest. I attended and was part of those. I spoke to many businesses. In addition to those, we have also, as you noted, held specific drop-in sessions with Downtown BIA and Old East. In September, the Chamber of Commerce also hosted, and they represent a number of small businesses. Specific to your question about was there a specific engagement session for businesses in the Northwest? No. Through the Chamber, they would have been invited to the other ones, but not specifically. And of course, the general public could attend any and all of the engagement sessions that were held.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. Just going back to the individuals that were living at the Lighthouse Inn. So by your figures, you have about 10 people living there by what's been provided by CMHA. And we don't know the length of time they've lived there. Do we know if it includes families and children?
Go ahead, Mr. Dickens.
Through your worship, we knew there was 6 individuals that were longer-term stay. I don't have a definition of what longer-term stay is, and 4 people that were in a short-term stay, which was roughly 2 to 3 months. The property owner has indicated that he has space at an alternative hotel for those individuals. And if they decline that offer of a new space in one of their other properties, they would still be assistive in helping them find new accommodations.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So would other supports other than moving them to another hotel, which I believe is somewhere not in the northwest part of the city, is there any other supports that will be provided to them?
Through your worship, I can't answer that question. That's a question for the property owner who's facilitating that move. We did not ask CMHA to provide supports to those being displaced. That was not a requirement of this proposal and this RFP, but that would be a question for the property owner.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. I appreciate answering those questions and hearing those responses today. I will have further comment to this. I'll yield and allow others to ask their questions and come back to my comments. Thank you.
Councillor Trossau, you asked a question. I just heard you. You asked when we break. I typically have broken at about the 2.5-hour mark into the meeting, so we're not quite there yet. So I think I'm going to proceed with speakers. That'll just be like a short break, though. So okay, I'm looking for others. Others who want to be added to the speakers list. Councillor Lehman, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've listened very closely to debate and conversation that we've had over not just today, but SPPC and prior council meetings leading up to this point. I've also had many conversations with constituents and Londoners in general regarding the hub plan and specifically these proposals that have responded to our RFP that are being recommended by staff. For me, there are 2 concerns that have been raised, and you can see the folks up there that are expressing those, and those that I've heard through those conversations and communications. One is cost and effectiveness, and 2 is safety. In this particular conversation that we're having right now, the safety is primarily concerned around the Fanshawe location. So I'll address the safety concern first. I truly believe that there should be an opportunity for the public to express their concerns on specific locations now that we're getting down to identifying those locations. But I believe that Fanshawe will have that opportunity as it requires rezoning. So in a rezoning process, that comes to our standing committee, planning and environment. At that time, the public will have an opportunity to voice their concerns directly to council and have those concerns addressed by staff and then fully debated by all of us. I also believe that future locations, as they come before council, should also have this opportunity, whether they have needs for rezoning or not. The second comment will regard to cost. Well, response to the RFPs have come in within our cost parameters. I have to admit I was disappointed in the number of beds in the proposals. But this is a reason for this process, as we now have the opportunity to go from whiteboard ideas and concepts down to actual implementation that will show us the true cost and true effectiveness of what has been discussed and planned. So I want to put this in perspective, the cost thing. We're hearing millions and millions of dollars, and then that's true. Generally, the beds, the cost per bed in the locations before us today are coming in north of about $100,000 per bed, a large cost. And let's look at the other costs as mentioned in the SPPC committee meeting by Mr. Dickens. Shelter cost is $40,000 per bed. That's just a roof over the head. Long-term care is $131,000 per bed. LHSC, the 100 or so beds there, are coming in at a cost of $500,000 each a bed. I've had this verified in my tour of that facility in recent weeks. Now, I believe the best solution for what is in front of us right now, and has been addressed by many people I spoke to, both in the campaign and leading up to this, is a full mental health addiction hospital to replace the London and St. Thomas psychiatric hospitals that were closed down 20 years ago. I believe the deputy mayor referred to this. Essentially, what I see, what we're having to come up with today, is a virtual hospital made up of 15 locations that are being proposed. I want to be clear, London taxpayers are not being asked to fund this solution and these hubs today, as we do not have the ability to fund a hospital within the parameters of what property tax can be. As we do not currently fund University Hospital or Victoria Hospital or the other hospitals in our area.
30 seconds on your first 5 minutes.
I'll ask that I get to add my 5 onto this.
Yeah, you can do it all at once.
Thank you. This solution will require funding from higher levels of government. What Londoners are doing today is not accepting the status quo. But I believe we are leading and providing a possible solution to the provincial and federal governments with true cost and measurable results. They're going to have to decide, is there a better cost-effective solution in perhaps a centralized facility, in perhaps adding more mental health beds currently at LHSC? Or they might see that the London Hub solution is a model to be used in other cities within our province and perhaps across Canada, as we are not alone in facing this situation that we see here. As far as cost effectiveness and results that have been mentioned today, this has been studied for a year. I think that for me personally, I look at who's providing $25 million for the one individual whose generosity is beyond what I've seen in my lifetime here. Would that individual be willing to invest that amount of money if the individual did not believe there is a great chance for success in this plan? And I also look at the corporate citizens of London that are leading the charge in fundraising to add additional funds to this solution. Would they be doing this if they, using business acumen, not see the potential here for success? Finally, I look at who are the applicants that are involved here. I believe we have very strong organizations that are looking to lead in the first 4 hubs that we're discussing. We have ATLOSA, YOU, and the Canadian Mental Health Association. Organizations that have had a strong record of success and a strong record in leading complex organizations that this is going to require both of supportive care and healthcare in the hub solution. So I will be supporting going ahead with these locations. I look forward to PAC to have a fulsome discussion on the concerns with that one particular location on Fanshawe. And then we will, and I look forward to going down this path, knowing full well that we are open to adjustments where needed to ensure the success as we address the most vulnerable in our city.
Thank you, Councillor Lehman. Just writing this down. Okay, I'll put myself on the speakers list next. So I'm going to turn the chair over to you.
Okay, I'll go to the mayor.
Thank you, colleagues. I really appreciate the debate and discussion. I'm not going to touch on some of the points that others have made because I think they've articulated some of the concerns really clearly. So let me just speak from a different perspective because as mayor, I get to see all of the activity in the city, but also what happens outside the city. I want to say, simply put, when it comes to improving the lives of marginalized Londoners, the community at large and area businesses, I don't think we'll ever have the chance that we have right now to do just that. We'll never again have a system designed by all those who've designed what we have before us today. The City of London plays an important role, but let's remember this design and this system doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the community. It was designed by our hospitals, public health, frontline workers, people with lived experience, social service agencies, emergency services, outreach workers, developers in the private sector. They're watching what we're doing here today. Some of them are in the audience. But they're not the only ones who are watching. As mayor, I can tell you cities across Ontario and throughout the country are also watching exactly what we're doing here in this chamber. I've heard it firsthand. I've seen it. I'm asked about this time and time again when I meet with other mayors or community leaders in other cities. They're watching, they're studying what we're doing, they believe in the work we're doing, and they want to see it work just as much as we do. And let me tell you why. Because this crisis is experienced by literally every community, big and small, across North America. When it comes to our challenges, London is not different, and we're not remarkable. However, we must be remarkable, and we must be different in terms of our approach and our outcomes. And I believe that's exactly what's happening right now. That's the opportunity I think we have before us today. There's a reason why we're not implementing the plans that have been tried elsewhere, and that's because no one has come up with a perfect, truly viable solution. And at the same time, no other community has come together in the way that ours has, and I described it in my earlier comments. No one has come together with that group of people to try something different. And in the coming months or years, other communities may very well say, let's do what London did. This system is not only an investment in helping marginalized Londoners experiencing homelessness, it's an investment in public safety, economic development, hospitals, land ambulance, downtown revitalization, neighborhoods throughout London. That's what the whole of community response contemplates us getting to. And today is just the first step in a series of actions that we can take on that response. I think we're at a unique and unprecedented moment in our city's history. We have the opportunity to save lives and change lives. We have the opportunity here to lead. As a council, we have to prioritize long-term homeless responses over short-term, small goals. We can lead through action. We don't have to delay forever. We can learn by doing. We can change. We can correct. As I said earlier, the community's watching, cities and communities throughout Canada, but most importantly, you know who else is watching? Marginalized Londoners. They're watching this as well. Their sons, daughters, moms, dads, aunts, uncles, grandparents. They're human beings and they're suffering on our streets. And that suffering is going to continue if we carry on doing things as we've always done. We have a chance to start to change that. We have a chance to be compassionate. We have a chance to be effective here in actually turning the corner for some of these lives. When it comes to our most marginalized, that's really what the system intends to deliver. We're trying to take people who are outdoors and suffering and bring them indoors through a variety of processes, ultimately into to housing. And I look at the proposals and I see partnerships that I've never seen before. Look at the way that our hospital system, recognizing that this is a health care problem, has partnered with Hubs proponents on land. The way that people have come together, I don't think I've ever seen in this community before. And yes, there are many things that we can go through and say, we could do this different, maybe we could try this, maybe we could think about this more. But ultimately what we have before us today is a chance to open spaces this year and more in the spring, and then move to the next step and the next step. And none of that is at the expense of all of the other initiatives that I've talked about many times that we have to do with homelessness, housing, and affordability in general. But this is about helping the most marginalized in our community, and I think we can take that action today. And that's 5 minutes. So I don't know if you were timing me, but I was.
I was. There you go. I'll return the chair to the mayor, and Councillor Pribble is on the speaker's list.
All right, Councillor Pribble, go ahead.
Thank you. I do love our concept of the hubs. I do, and I did receive lots of feedback from local community, even internationally, from other experts dealing with mental health and homelessness, and I do like this concept. Going back to it, which I briefly already repeated, when we received the guidelines, what we were hoping for, I wish, besides the great agencies that offered to come forward and submitted their submissions, which I'm grateful for, I hope the other ones would be within the guidelines as well in terms of the number of beds and in terms of the expenditure. I am, and I would like to certainly support at least one today, no doubt, and use it as an example. And the reason why I'm saying use it as an example, I think that it is a good concept. I do believe that we need to, and I hope we'll make it work as the best possible, but for us to sell this concept to the upper levels of governments. I don't believe, and actually Councillor Lyman said this, which was exactly what I wanted to say, ending up with 15 hospitals. I don't think if you look at any part, doesn't matter if it's medical, if it's business, if you look at this, it's in terms of the costs, it would be much cheaper to have these services under one roof, no doubt. And I think our goal should be not to actually finance 15 hospitals, but to sell this and to do truly cost-benefit analysis of this one perfect example and sell it to the province and to the federal government and say it works and this is the cost-benefit analysis, it makes sense and it's feasible more and cost-effective than any of these multiple hospitals or multiple hubs. I do believe, as I said, it's not, and I think we all agree, we want to help the homelessness, we want to help the situation. The thing is, again, where is the dollar going to get us further and faster? And I'm looking at the numbers. And as we've been saying, we have over 2,000 homeless people in London, 500-600 high acuity. And I really think that we need to take really fast actions with the example I said before. And it is really truly happening that we have the growing homeless population that cannot afford the everyday living. They cannot afford it anymore. And they are starting to interact more and more people with addiction, the high acuity people. And it's only a matter of time, which we are already seeing. So my thing is looking at the numbers, looking at the investment. That's what I'm looking at and return on it. One of them came very close or really close to our guidelines, what we were presented in July, and I will support that one. The other ones, in terms of the organizations, if they come back with a real estate and with the numbers that we were hoping for, we can make that decision immediately. It's not at this time with the hubs and our community made the plan that it's wasted. It hasn't been wasted. We have a great plan. Yes, I do think strategically, I wish during these summit sessions, we had other plans. Because guess what? What would have happened now if none of them came forward? So where's the plan B? Where's the plan C? We would be sitting here and we would be looking that last 6 months was completely wasted. So I'm grateful that something actually came forward. But I do believe that we have strategically, we missed an opportunity to come up with a plan B, C, D, so we could analyze $1 million will buy us this, 2 million this, 3 million this. And then for us to make that decision, what we feel is truly the urgent matter for London, because with these numbers, And even, high acuity, whichever expert you are going to talk to, even though we say it's for 20 people and they will be moved out to this other types of housing. First of all, not all housing we are ready for, point one. And point two, it does take time. But some of the areas of London, some of the businesses of London, they don't have this time. And that's the thing, that is the part of it's not that I don't agree with the hubs and the concept. I think it's a great concept. But the thing is, are we really dealing with the most urgent issues? Or with this, are we going to be dealing here, sitting here in 12 months, said we helped 43 people. It cost us, in 1 year, it cost us $12.5 million. And on the streets and in the encampments, there will be no difference. It actually potentially be higher. So that is my point. It's not that I'm disagreeing with any one of you. All of you have the right point. We all want to help it. The question is, where is it going to get us the best result, the fastest result, because we need it. Our citizens need it, all Londoners need it, and it's not just Londoners, it's also the Londoners living in these encampments, because they are actually the ones that are struggling the most. And the question is, how many of them will be among us after the winter? And we are addressing 43 people with $12.5 million going into the 73. So that was my point with that. But thank you, and I certainly do want to support at least one. And I really think that our goal should be, let's make it as perfect as it could be, support it as much as we can, and sell it to the higher levels of government, because we can't afford 15. We aren't going to have, how many, I'm grateful to the family with the donation of $25 million.
Councilor, you're approaching your time.
Unfortunately, we don't have too many families. I'm going to finish now because just in case I do want to have my last 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, you certainly do. Councilor Pelosa, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Recognizing this is an intricate conversation that's important to stay focused on, I would like to move a 10-minute break just so we can do a bio break and come back.
10-minute break moved by Councilor Pelosa, seconded by Councilor Trosau. We'll just do this one by hand. All those in favor? Any opposed?
The motion carries.
Okay. 10 minutes. Okay, thank you. Please be seated. Just one thing I want to add for colleagues. I wanted to ensure that I had permission to share this from Councillor Hillier, which he's now confirmed. Yeah, he's not in attendance at the meeting. He wanted me to let colleagues know that there was a passing of his mother-in-law, and so he's participating in arrangements related to that today. So that's why Councillor Hillier is not here. So I know we all, our thoughts are all with Councillor Hillier and his family, and you know, feel free to reach out to him when you have a moment. With that, we're going to return to the debate, and I'm adding to my speakers list, so I'm looking for the next speaker. Councillor Hopkins, I see your hand up. I don't know if you want to speak now, but you could go ahead, or if you have a question, happy to address it.
Can you hear me? I'm having problems with my internet, and I thought I better speak now and make my comments. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Councillor. I will say it's a little bit choppy, but how about you proceed, and I'll stop you if we're starting to lose you.
Thank you for that. I will be brief.
And
I do
Councillor,
want to say, yeah.
I know if your internet's not good. If you want to speak,
Will I take my video off?
Yeah, if you want to do that, I think that might give you more stability. We're happy to accommodate that for you.
How's that? Can you hear me now? Better?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
All right, I'll just proceed. Thank you very much. And I am very supportive here. I am very honored and privileged to be part of this discussion that is going on this evening. I am very supportive of going forward and trying the hubs out, hopefully getting people into supportive housing eventually. For me, it's something that I've really learned a lot about. I've heard a lot of comments from my colleagues and really appreciate even the comments that I didn't agree with. I think we're all very invested and want to make a difference. We heard loud and clear when we were campaigning that homelessness is top of mind of most Londoners. And I think this plan may not be perfect, but we have to do something. It will be a risk to our city if we don't do anything to take care of our homeless. It's been mentioned, the numbers. I've also learned through this process that the costs of healthcare are expensive. And it's important that we also protect people's lives as well. It's something that I know we can all come together. It's been disappointing to see and hear the divisiveness in our city, but I do think as Londoners, we will come together. I want to give my thanks to not only city staff, but the 200 stakeholders that came together with this plan, the collaboration. It is a change. I think change will be difficult. It's not easy. It's almost an unknown process that we're going to venture into, but the risk is great not to do anything. And I really want to be supportive and will just want to thank everyone. I think that's all I want to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. I'll look for other speakers. Go ahead, Councillor Rahman.
Thank you. Whew, okay. I've already asked for the RFPs to be split, and I want to share why I will not be supporting the CMA proposal today. I believe we don't have all the information in order to assess the unintended consequences associated with this location. So I want to start by reading a letter. To whom will listen. I am writing to you because I came to Canada and have been living at 705 Fanshawe at the Lighthouse for 1 year. I share the room with 3 other friends because I don't have money to have my own home and financial work is minimal. I moved to this area because of my family and friends are in the area, and being close to them allows me to live my life as normal as possible. While I'm getting good in this wonderful place, I've met so many other good friends that live at the lighthouse and some that have been here longer. I hear we get kicked out of the lighthouse, so for others to live here. Please listen, here is already home, and helping other families that live here. There are many people here. Please come here. If I have to go from this area, it would destroy me, my family and friends who need our family and friends close to live. I beg to God, and whoever will listen, don't destroy my family. I'm asking for you today to listen to the voices from my ward. As a counselor for Ward 7, I'm going to attempt to bring the voices to the table, and I know you've received, and I've received, thousands of letters, and I know you've probably seen the petition with close to 1,000 signatures. That was a letter from a resident of mine. That is a resident that lives at the hotel, whose life will be in upheaval if we vote yes on this proposal. From my understanding in my conversations, there are 14 or so people residing at the hotel right now. Have we thought through the impact to them? Have we thought through the impact to their kids that attend area schools? Have we thought about where they'll sleep and shelter? Are we really only willing to listen to these voices during a rezoning? A rezoning discussion is not focused on where people go or the closure of a business. Quote, if this goes through, this business closes. I don't know how I'll provide for my kids. That's a quote from a staff member at the Black Pearl Pub. There's no ambiguity here. If we vote in support of this proposal, the Black Pearl Pub will close. Small businesses are still recovering from the pandemic. Many business owners here around this horseshoe, they're counselors. I don't need to tell you about that. The savings have been depleted. The cost to borrow is high, and a relocation doesn't seem possible with all these barriers. Relocation's not possible. It will force a closure. That's 12 employees, 12 people unemployed. We must ask ourselves if this is what we intended. Is this what we expected as a result of this RFP? Is this what we said we were going to do? I've heard repeatedly that London is poised to be a leader with this approach and this plan. How will it look to put people out on the streets, to close a business so that we can say that we enacted our plan? I'm asking you today to vote no on the RFP from CMHA at this time. I personally do not believe we've addressed these unintended consequences of this decision. The need for conversation with the community and the issues around the criteria, I know that those haven't been fully fleshed out. I know that this RFP is associated with 10 beds for December 2023. And I also know that if we task our very capable staff to find a way to bring those respite beds through our cold weather response for vulnerable women, or to find ways through future RFPs, we can work together to address that. We said that the work we are doing is like building a bridge while you're walking across it. We said we were going to make mistakes along the way, and when we do, we will course correct. Let us course correct. Let's find a way forward, a way that brings the whole of community alongside, a way that hears the voices from my ward, a way that doesn't force people out. These impacts are tremendous, and I've taken the time to listen to people's stories as much as possible. People living and working at this location, people living and working in the community, business owners in my ward. I do believe we can find a way to do all of these things. Find a way to support vulnerable women, and find a way to be able to support those that are living and working at this location. I'm asking you today, colleagues, to not support the RFP for CMHA. Thank you.
Okay, I'll look for other speakers. Okay, I'm going to say I don't see any. No? Okay, so it's been asked to divide these separately. I think it's probably easiest to do each of them individually, the ABC portions. And then depending on what happens with those portions, we may need some time to adjust numbers in the others or may not, depending on the results of the vote. But I'll ask the Deputy Mayor if you can see the screen. Just, you'll put these on the floor individually and just identify which proposal is on the floor so colleagues clearly know which one they're voting for. So I'll go over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will start by putting Clause A on the floor. This is with regard to Atlosa Family Healing Services.
And I don't need a seconder because you're presenting the committee's report, so that's fine. We're just dividing the vote. Okay, we're just going to get that up on the screen. Is it ready? Okay. With no further speakers on this, we're going to just open all of these for voting. So this will just be A right now.
Councillor Hopkins votes yes.
Councillor Van Meerbergen. Second call, Councillor Van Meerbergen. Closing the vote. Motion carries 11-3.
Deputy Mayor?
Your Worship, I will now put Clause B on the floor. This is the request for proposal to be awarded to Youth Opportunities Unlimited.
Okay, we'll get B up in just a moment. Okay, that's ready. We're going to open B for voting.
Councillor Hopkins votes yes.
Closing the vote. Motion carries 10-4.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I will now put Clause 3 on the floor. This is the request for proposal for the Canadian Mental Health Association, Thames Valley Addiction and Mental Health Services.
Okay, that's ready for voting, so we'll open that one for voting.
Hopkins votes yes.
Closing the vote. Motion carries 9-5.
Okay, so Deputy Mayor, that doesn't change any of the numbers, so you're able to, I think, put all the rest of it on the floor, all the other related clauses at this time.
Yes, so I will now move clauses D through I, inclusive.
Just make sure everybody is okay with that. Go ahead, Councillor Rahman.
Could we separate those out, please?
Can you tell me which one you want separated out so I don't have to separate all of them out?
Thank you. I have concerns with F, the way that it's all together.
Sure. Okay, I want you to put everything but F on, which is, F is essentially everything we've done is conditional upon entering a purchase of service agreement with the partners. Councilor Rahman?
Sorry, thank you. I'd like to also deal with E separately.
Deputy Mayor, can you just do D? I'm just gonna let the clerk have a little bit of time on the other ones.
All right, well, let's put D on the floor then.
Okay, D is on the floor. I'll let you know when that's ready. Okay, we're gonna open D for voting.
Councillor Hopkins?
I vote yes.
Closing the vote, motion carries 11-3.
Okay, let's do E next.
Are we able to do E and F together, or?
No,
Do they need to be
because there's a
separated?
request to divide F further than it's currently contemplated, and I'm just working on that, but we could do E while we wait.
Okay, well then I'll put E on the
Okay,
floor.
thank you. Yes, Councilor Rahman?
Thank you. I just had some questions pertaining to E. Is it separate?
Councilor, we've done the debate, and so we're now on to the voting on the pieces. So is it a technical question about E that you need to understand? Go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, it's to clarify what we mean by saying the city's role in the Planning Act applications. My question pertains to, will the city be the one acting on behalf of the agencies to rezone?
I'm going to take that as like a technical question that assists you in the voting. I'm going to try to keep this tight, though, since we had the debate. So if I could have a member of our planning staff answer the councilor's question so that that's clear.
Sorry, through you, your worship, or to you, your worship. So we'd be looking for CMHA to bring forward the application, and then the city would go through the normal process through Planning and Environment Committee.
Okay, so CMHA would bring forward the application, and it would be obviously a process like other applications. Okay.
Thank you. And just through you, further technical question where it says to align current or future hub sites with criteria, is there still an opportunity within the way this reads? Does this, because we're authorizing administration, does this preclude us from adding or tightening up criteria?
I have to go to our staff for that. Sorry, Mr. Dickens, go ahead.
That's okay, your worship, and through you. So what is intended in that clause is that ensuring that we are aligning future locations with the hub's plan criteria. So ensuring that if anyone's seeking funding through the Fund for Change or through our HPP funding as it relates to hubs, that it aligns with the criteria set out in the hub's implementation plan.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Okay, so that's E. E is moved, and we're going to open E for voting.
Councillor Hopkins votes yes.
Councillor Van Meerbergen. Closing the vote, motion carries 9-5.
Okay, Deputy Mayor, I'm just going to let you know that when you put F forward, F is the piece that says, given the approvals above, that be conditional upon the corporation entering into a purchase of service agreement with the 3 separate agencies. I've been asked to divide that out, so the way that we're just going to reformat that is basically with that, you know, the approval to be given, the approval given already be conditional upon the corporation entering into a purchase of a service agreement with FI, FII, and FIII. So FI will be for Youth Opportunities Unlimited. So that is the purchase of service agreement with Youth Opportunities Unlimited. So that's the first one we'll vote on. So if you could put FI on the floor, that would be great.
All right, let's put FI on the floor.
Just so everybody's clear, FI is basically F, but only with respect to Youth Opportunities Unlimited. We'll open that for voting.
Councillor Hopkins votes yes.
Closing the vote, motion carries 13-1.
Okay, II will be at LOSA.
At LOSA. FII will now be put on the floor.
Okay, and just for clarity for everybody, this is at LOSA Family Healing Services. We'll open that for voting as soon as it's ready.
Councillor Hopkins votes yes.
Should be open now for colleagues.
Closing the vote, motion carries 13-1.
Go ahead.
And finally on F, I will put FIII on the floor. This is the Canadian Mental Health Association, Thames Valley.
Okay, I'll let you know when that's ready and open. Okay, we're opening that now.
Hopkins votes yes.
Closing the vote, motion carries 12-2.
Okay. Yes, we'll do H separate, so, G first, Deputy Mayor.
That is correct. I will now put G on the floor.
Okay, we'll open that now.
Councillor Hopkins votes yes.
Closing the vote, motion carries 11-3.
Okay, I will now put H on the floor.
Okay, I'm going to open this one for voting.
Councillor Hopkins votes yes.
Closing the vote, motion carries 13-1.
Go ahead.
And finally, Your Worship, we'll put clause I and the it being noted that the communications included on the added agenda were received on the floor.
Okay, we'll open I for voting.
Councillor Hopkins votes yes.
Closing the vote, motion carries 11-3.
And that, Your Worship, concludes the 23rd special report of the Strategic Priorities and Policy Committee, and I will take my seat.
Yes, thank you for standing through all that. So that completes the report section. There's no added reports. There's no deferred matters. There's not generally inquiries at a special meeting. There's the emergent motion item, correspondence from Councillor Stevenson and Councillor Pribble. This would require you to seek leave at this time, Councillor Pribble.
I would just let you know that we would like to move this to next week to the strategic planning SPPC meeting, so we don't want to deal with it this evening.
Okay, so if you're not asking for leave, then there'd be no matter before us to deal with. You can bring it back forward, whatever standing committee you want. So
that is correct.
Yeah, it'll just be off the agenda. So, okay, so the councillors are not asking for leave anymore, so there is no more emergent motion. That brings us to move on to bylaws. We have two. I'm guessing we should deal with those separately. So the first bylaw is the general confirming bylaw that we do for every meeting of council that we have. That's bylaw 366. Okay, I'll look for a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Plaza, Councillor Ferreira, no discussion on first reading, so we'll open that for voting.
Councillor Hopkins votes yes.
Councillor Cuddy?
Yes. Yes.
Closing the vote, motion carries 13-1.
Okay, we'll mover and seconder for second reading. Councillor Lehman, seconded by Councillor Stevenson. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll open that for voting.
Yes.
Closing the vote, motion carries 14-0.
Third reading. Moved by Councillor Ferreira, seconded by Councillor Cuddy. No debate on third reading, so we'll open third reading for voting as soon as it's ready.
Councillor Hopkins votes yes.
Closing the vote, motion carries 14-0.
Okay, next is Bill 367. I'll look for a mover and a seconder for a first reading of that bill. Moved by Councillor Pelosa, seconded by Councillor Trousseau. There's no debate on first reading, so we'll open that for voting.
Councillor votes yes.
Councillor Frank. Closing the vote, motion carries 11-3.
Okay, I'll look for a mover and seconder for second reading. Moved by Councillor Trousseau, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lewis. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll open that for voting.
Councillor Hopkins votes yes.
Closing the vote, motion carries 11-3.
Third reading of this bylaw, I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Ferreira, seconded by Councillor McAllister. There's no discussion on third reading, so we'll open this for voting.
Councillor Hopkins votes yes.
Closing the vote, motion carries 10-4.
Colleagues, that brings us to the end of bylaws. Now, with your indulgence, I'm going to say a few words, even though she won't want me to. For those who don't know, this is Barb Westlake Power, Deputy Clerk's final council meeting after many years of service to the corporation of the City of London. And I know you really don't want me to say any words, but I'm going to do it anyways. I want to say, Barb personally, we've had the ability to sit beside each other for many years in the seat just over there and in this seat. I believe there have been, some difficult moments through those years. There's been challenging procedural calls where you've given just phenomenal advice. There was a few moments where someone said something funny and you and I got giggling and we both couldn't stop and I had to duck my head down below the screen so people couldn't see. But I want to say, you have made many friends, many positive memories, and more importantly, significant contributions on behalf of the people of the City of London in your role here as Deputy Clerk and the other roles that you've had at the City. We thank you incredibly for your service. We wish you all the best in what comes next. I'm sure it's lots of Red Wing games, perhaps, and fun things like that. But on behalf of all Londoners and on behalf of City Council, I'd like to invite my colleagues in joining me in thanking Barb Westlake Power for her service. The clerk says that was procedurally not in order. With that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Frank, seconded by Councillor Ferreira. All those in favor of adjournment by hand?
That motion carries.
We're adjourned. Thank you.